How did school do? Well, I'm thankful for the opportunity to just share my humble thoughts on how school did for me and the training that I received. Just a little bit of background. I am 35 years old. I graduated from high school back in 1995. So, in the education realm and the technology realm, I guess I was schooled in the days of the dinosaurs. We didn't have the internet. Our computers were Macintosh computers with, if I remember correctly, the green background screen and so and color printing was unheard of. That's something the Pentagon used or rich people used back in those days. We didn't have digital cameras. I believe were just coming on the scene, so our yearbook was taken with film. Uh, and so my training was a little bit different than it is today, and technology has come a long way. Back in my day, using algebra, or taking algebra or geometry or things along classes like that, we were not allowed to use calculators. If we used calculators, it was considered cheating, and we could get in trouble for that. Today, I have a ninth grade, a 14-year-old daughter who's in ninth grade. I have a 13-year-old son who's in seventh grade, and calculators are not frowned upon. They're encouraged in some aspects, and um, so things have changed quite a bit. One area in which I would criticize school a little bit would be in the area of planning out your lessons for the year. I think it would be good if the schools could develop lesson plans for the year that are consistent across the country. For example, an English teacher may in September start teaching nouns, and then in October move on to verbs, and then November adverbs, and maybe next month be adjectives, and so on and so forth throughout the school year. Now, if that same plan could be instituted across the country, when someone from Washington State moves to Florida, they aren't missing much. They are doing nouns in Washington, and when they move to Florida, they're doing nouns. Now, the teaching methods don't have to be the same because let's be realistic. Different schools have different makeups, they have different strengths and different weaknesses. Some schools have strong resources, some schools have weaker resources. So the teaching method could be different, but the subject would be good if it was close to the time frame. That way, many things weren't missed. In my experience, in going to a number of different schools, I missed out on a few fundamentals in grammar, for example. It wasn't until my late high school years that I learned what a preposition was, or a prepositional phrase, and how to find them in sentences, and their meaning and why they were there. But my classmates had learned about prepositions and prepositional phrases back in fifth, sixth, seventh grade. They had learned them before, but that's because they grew up in the school district. In the lesson plan, what didn't cater to those whose parents are more transient and move around often, like military families, or those who move for their jobs, or whatever the case might be. It doesn't really matter. But I think you see my point. So it would be nice if that could be addressed. Um, Technology does change, and I agree that schools need to adapt to technology. But with that, not only do schools need to adapt with technology, the teachers need to adapt as well. I am currently attending college. Later on in my life, I understand, but there's a number of teachers who are my age, some of them who are older, who refuse to learn technology. Not that they're not capable, but they refuse to do it. And I believe that that does not send a proper message to your students that even though there is a better tool, even though there's a better resource, and you are capable of using that resource, that you refuse to use that resource. What message does that send your students? It sends them a message that technology is not important. Technology is very important. It's used all around the world. I know some of my teachers get very offended when I pull out my smartphone and I go to my calendar and I start putting in my homework assignments that are due. They look at it and there's a stigma attached, and my phone is out. Therefore, I must be texting, or I must be searching the internet or something. No, those smartphones can be used for so much more than just texting. They can be used for so much more than just looking at the internet, and neither of those are bad in themselves. They're tools for education. I can put my books on my smartphone, but I can't use my phone because my teachers refuse to see technology for what it is, and it's a good thing. So school hurts in that aspect, and I suspect that if it's happening at the college level, it's probably happening at the high school level and lower. And so the whole, I believe the attitude of teaching in some aspects needs to change. We shouldn't look at technology as a bad thing. We should embrace it because the rest of the world is. We should understand that that's a good thing. It's a positive resource to use. Now, I believe, for example, going back to the calculator illustration, that we should teach the students the theory and the mechanics behind what the calculator does. But it's okay to use the calculator as long as they understand that 2 plus 2 equals 4, that they don't have to punch that in a calculator to figure out that answer. They should know how to divide and how to multiply and add and subtract fractions, because you use that when you're using with woodworking or a trade along those lines. You'll use that when you're baking and you need to multiply your recipe, or maybe you need to reduce the salt content by a certain percentage. It'd be good to know that how it happens, because it could aid us, because we don't always have a calculator around, but that doesn't make the calculator wrong. It's just when is it acceptable and when it's not, and that is something that those who are trained in education should be able to establish and to teach properly. That way both areas are covered. Now, I am thankful for my schooling career. It gave me the tools I need to succeed in life. That, and with the balance in the home and the church, I believe that I become a very well-rounded citizen. I'm not a perfect man by any sense, but I'm thankful for it. Extra after-school activities, baseball meant a lot to me. Soccer, learning how to work as a team. And when you're in a corporation or in a business, you're not by yourself most often. You are working with others. Those teach those things. I was on a speech team my 10th grade year in North Chicago, Illinois. It prepared me for standing in front of people and lecturing and using my thoughts. And now I'm not the best at it, as you can obviously tell by this video, but it helped. It gave me the tools I needed. It launched me out into the areas that are out there. And so I'd like to see those developed. I'd like to see them grow as well. And then as far as the lessons plans, I'd like to see that developed across the country. That'd be great. And if not across the country, let's do it across the state. And let's stop looking at things like ideas and say, well, that's a good idea. We should think about that. And then leave it alone. That's dumb. Imagine if the great inventors said, hey, I had a great idea for a light bulb. What do you think? And all the other scientists thought they were dumb. And they never brought it up again. Or about electricity. And God forbid they talk about the world being flat or round. The great things happen is because people launched out and did things. So when we see technology, let's embrace it. When we see new methods of learning, let's embrace it. And let's teach the fundamentals of these subjects in which we desire our kids to know. I don't think testing is bad. It gives us a good indication. We test in our courses, but I don't also think that the funding for schools should be related to that. I don't think funding should be related to property taxes. I believe that just shows favoritism to one segment of a country over the next. All those areas need to be addressed, and there's many great ideas, and those who are in the schools are the brightest minds we have today. They're the ones teaching our kids in the next generation. Let's put those minds together, and let's have some action, and let's get things done. That way, the next generation who sits in front of their computer, and they make a video about how was school done for me or how done for you, they can sit there and they can say, well, things might have changed. But I learned a lot. I am prepared today because my teachers and my administrators and those who are educated, who have all those letters after their names, went forward and did something. They were leaders. They taught, because that's what teachers do.